Have you ever watched something so wrong unfold right before your eyes, yet no one dared to say a word? In the everyday hustle of a small neighborhood market, ordinary moments blend into each other. Shopping carts rolling, cash registers ringing, polite greetings exchanged. But today, something would happen that no one expected. A moment so intense, so revealing, it would forever change how this market and its people saw themselves. It all began with a young man named Peter. Peter was 21, bright, polite, and full of hope. It was his very first day working at the market. He had Down syndrome, but more importantly, he had a heart that believed in kindness and a determination that refused to be dimmed. Peter had waited weeks for this job. He'd polished his shoes the night before. He wore his new uniform with pride. And as he stepped through those sliding glass doors, he was ready to prove that he belonged. But what Peter didn't know was that today he would be tested in ways he couldn't imagine. Behind his nervous smile lived a story most people never saw, a past filled with silent scars, especially from a man who once stood in the role of his stepfather, a man who never believed in him, a man whose cruel words still echoed in Peter's mind like broken glass. "You'll never amount to anything. Boy, don't even try." Still, Peter held his head high. He met his manager, Jack, who welcomed him with genuine warmth. "We're happy to have you here, Peter," he said. Peter nodded, his voice a little shaky. "Thank you, sir. I'll do my best." And he did. From organizing shelves to carefully bagging groceries, Peter gave his all. Even when some co-workers exchanged glances and whispered comments about how slow he was, Peter chose not to listen. He focused, he worked, he believed. But then, she walked in. Karen, a 45-year-old woman with sharp heels, sharper eyes, and absolutely no patience. From the moment she entered, her presence screamed superiority. Her sighs were loud, her glares louder. Every item she tossed into her cart was like a warning shot. Don't get in my way. And unfortunately, Peter was next in line. As he greeted her with a soft, "Good morning, Mom," she looked at him like he was wasting her time. And that's when it began. The sighs, the tapping fingers, the cruel sarcasm that slipped from her lips like poison. The kind of treatment that makes others uncomfortable. But still, no one spoke up, except someone was watching. Someone standing just a few feet away, disguised in plain sight. He wore jeans, a casual shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low. He blended in perfectly, intentionally. But if you looked closely, you'd recognize the face. The world knew him as an international superstar. Today, though, he wasn't a celebrity. He was just Justin, a man who couldn't look away any longer. And what he did next silenced the entire store. Peter's first day and hidden scars. Peter adjusted his name tag for the third time as he stepped inside the bustling local market. It read simply, "Peter, new team member." The letters weren't bold, but to him, they felt like a badge of honor. Today was his first official shift, and even though his hands trembled slightly, he wore his navy blue uniform with pride. The fluorescent lights above flickered slightly as carts rolled past, customers chatted, and soft background music played over the speakers. To most people, it was just another Tuesday morning. But for Peter, it was a new chapter. "Welcome to the team, Peter," Jack, the manager, said with a warm smile, extending his hand. Peter grinned and shook it quickly. "Thank you, sir. I'll do my best." Jack nodded approvingly. "That's all we ask." Training began immediately. Peter was shown how to organize items, stack shelves, and, his favorite part, bag groceries at checkout. He paid close attention, asking polite questions and repeating steps in his head. While most new employees might breeze through the basics, Peter took his time, determined to get everything just right. But not everyone appreciated his carefulness. In the break room, a young employee leaned toward another and whispered, "He's a bit slow, huh?" They chuckled softly. Peter had heard. He didn't show it, but he heard. He had heard those kinds of words before. They had a weight to them, a sting that never fully healed. Back at home, long before this job, he'd faced worse. His former stepfather, a man cold as stone, had carved insults into his confidence like etchings on glass. "You'll never amount to anything, boy. You're just slow." Peter had sat at that old kitchen table, a bowl of cereal untouched before him, while those words lashed down like rain. He never spoke back. He just stared at the spoon and tried not to cry. But that was the past. Today was different. Peter had made a promise to himself. He would prove those words wrong. He would smile, he would help customers, and he would be part of something real. And so, as the hours passed, he greeted each customer with a soft hello, double-checked every barcode, and folded each grocery bag with care. He wasn't the fastest, but he was focused, precise, gentle. A few customers noticed and smiled back. Others simply moved along. No one cheered, no one mocked. Until, near the end of his shift, Peter was helping an elderly man at checkout when a loud sigh cut through the air. He looked up, momentarily startled. Across the store, a woman with a tight expression and expensive-looking handbag stood with her arms crossed. She was glaring at the checkout line. "These stores never know how to organize anything," she muttered, loud enough for people to hear. "It's always the same mess." She grabbed a cart and began walking with sharp, determined strides, heels clacking against the tiled floor like ticking clock hands. Her name was Karen, and although Peter didn't know it yet, she was about to change his day completely. Karen moved through the aisles with growing agitation, tossing items into her cart without care. A box of cereal, slammed in. A carton of eggs, barely checked. Every time someone paused in front of her to read a label or consider a price, she groaned audibly, as if the universe had conspired to waste her time. By the time she reached Peter's line, her face was already clouded with disdain. Peter greeted her like he had greeted everyone else, with a gentle smile. "Good morning, ma'am." Karen didn't reply. Not really. She let out a sarcastic chuckle and said, "I hope it's a good morning because I don't have all day." Peter nodded quickly and began scanning her items. One by one he lifted, scanned, bagged. He double-checked codes and handled each item with delicate care. But Karen was already impatient. She sighed, tapped her fingers, rolled her eyes. Each movement was louder than the last. "Is this going to take long?" she snapped. "Because honestly, it feels like I'm watching this in slow motion." Peter's cheeks flushed. His hands moved a little, faster, but not much. His nerves had returned, sharp and unwelcome. And then, one of her items slipped from his grip. A bag of rice. It hit the floor with a soft thud. "Oh my God," Karen muttered, loud and clear. "He can't even hold a bag." The people in line shifted slightly. Some glanced down, others stared at their phones. No one said a word. Peter crouched, picked up the rice, and whispered an apology. But Karen wasn't done, not even close. She leaned closer and said, voice like a knife, "This is ridiculous. I don't have time for whatever this is." Peter swallowed hard. The old echoes returned. "You're slow. You're dead weight." He stood up straighter, blinking quickly. "I just want to help," he whispered to himself. But Karen had no interest in letting him try. She mocked him in front of everyone. Until a stranger stepped forward. Karen's presence wasn't just disruptive. It was electric. She radiated irritation like a furnace, her posture stiff, her jaw clenched. Every breath she took seemed to carry a new insult ready to launch. Peter, now visibly flustered, tried to refocus. He carefully placed a carton of eggs into a paper bag, making sure they wouldn't crack. But even that triggered Karen's contempt. "You've got to be kidding me," she scoffed. "It's eggs. Not a crystal chandelier. Just bag it and move. On. A young woman, 2 customers behind, shifted uncomfortably. She glanced at the man next to her, who was looking down at his shoes, pretending not to hear. No one wanted to get involved. Karen leaned closer to the counter, her voice rising. This is the express lane, not the scenic route. I could have baked a cake in the time it's taken him to scan 3 items. Peter's hands began to tremble. Again. He tried to hide it by holding the bag tighter, but another item slipped, this time a can of soup. It clanged against the floor and rolled slightly before stopping. "Oh my God!" Karen exclaimed theatrically, turning to the rest of the line. "Do you all see this? Is this really acceptable?" A few customers looked up, but none said anything. The air was thick with discomfort. Karen turned back to Peter and crossed her arms. "You shouldn't even be working here," she snapped. "I mean, really? Who hired you? Out of pity?" Peter froze. Her words didn't just hurt. They echoed like his stepfather's voice, long buried but never forgotten. "You'll never get anything right." His fingers curled slightly. On the counter, he didn't know what to say. He wanted to disappear. "I'm just trying," he murmured, barely audible. Karen rolled her eyes. "Trying? That's not enough. People have schedules, you know." Peter's eyes welled up. He blinked rapidly, forcing the tears back, swallowing the knot in his throat. He focused on the groceries, anything to anchor himself, but Karen wasn't done. "You're holding everyone up," she shouted, arms flailing. "This is a store, not a charity." Several phones were out now. People were recording, but still no one spoke. The crowd was paralyzed, caught between guilt, discomfort, and fear of confrontation. Peter's shoulders drooped. His hands, sweaty and shaking, tried to continue bagging, the items blurred before him. The harsh fluorescent light above seemed to mock his every move. Then, something unexpected happened. From across the store, a pair of steady footsteps echoed. Not loud, not rushed, but deliberate, confident. Each step seemed to cut through, the tension like a knife through fog. Karen didn't notice. She was still mid-rant, her voice rising with each syllable. "This is what I'm paying for," she barked, turning to the others again. "This incompetence." Peter didn't look up, but he felt something shift, the energy in the room, a presence. The man in the hoodie had been standing quietly, half hidden by a display of canned beans. Now, he stepped forward into full view. His face was partially shadowed by the brim of a cap, but something about his posture, the calm authority, the quiet intensity, made people turn. He wasn't tall in an intimidating way, but there was something unmistakable about him, something familiar. Karen finally paused and noticed the eyes shifting towards someone behind her. She turned, irritated, and there he was. Justin Bieber. He wasn't surrounded by bodyguards or fans, no entourage, no spotlight. Just a man in jeans and a hoodie. Witnessing something he couldn't ignore any longer, Karen blinked. Recognition flashed in her eyes, then confusion. Justin took another step forward, his expression unreadable. The market held its breath. Peter, still behind the counter, dared to lift his gaze. Their eyes met, and for a brief second, everything, the voices, the judgment, the fear, fell away. Justin nodded once, and then, softly but firmly, he spoke. "That's enough." Justin Bieber speaks, and the entire market freezes. That's enough. The words weren't shouted, yet they sliced through the noise like a bell in a silent church. Karen turned fully now, her brows raised in mock disbelief. "Excuse me?" she snapped, her tone laced with entitlement. "Who exactly do you think you are?" Justin didn't flinch. He stood calm, shoulders relaxed, hands by his sides. His voice was measured, almost gentle, but carried the quiet power of someone who wasn't used to being ignored. "I'm someone who's been standing here watching you humiliate a young man who's doing his best." he said, "and it needs to stop." The market was dead silent. No cash register beeped. No cart rolled. Just the sound of Karen's sharp breath as she realized. People were watching her now, not Peter. She scoffed, folding her arms. "So you think you can lecture me now, is that it? What do you know about what I've had to put up with today?" Justin tilted his head slightly. "I know you're frustrated. That's human. But what you don't get to do is take that frustration out on someone who's done nothing wrong." Karen blinked. Her bravado wavered. Peter, still behind the counter, looked at Justin with wide, uncertain eyes. This couldn't be real. Was Justin Bieber defending him? Justin turned toward Peter and took a step closer, softening his voice. "What's your name?" Peter hesitated. Peter. Justin smiled gently. "Peter, you're doing a great job. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise, okay?" Peter nodded, lips trembling. He couldn't find the words. But in that moment, someone had seen him. Really seen him. Karen let out a sarcastic laugh, though it was thinner now, lacking its earlier venom. "This is ridiculous. You're acting like he's some kind of hero. I just wanted my groceries bagged, not a therapy session." Justin turned back to her, his expression cooling. "And you could have had that, with patience, with kindness, but you chose cruelty. That's on you." A murmur rippled through the line. One customer stepped forward slightly. "He's right," the woman said. "This is a grocery store, not a stage for your temper." Another voice joined in. "We've all been waiting, but no one else spoke to him like that. It's not okay." Karen looked around. For the first time, she wasn't met with silent complicity, but with rows of disapproving faces. Phones pointed at her, eyes judging her. The shift in power was complete. Justin took one last step forward, not menacing, but firm. "You want fast service?" he asked. "That's fine, but it doesn't come at the cost of someone's dignity." Karen, flustered and cornered, gave one final eye roll, grabbed her purse, and stormed off, her heels clicking angrily across the tile. And just like that, she was gone. The crowd let out the breath they didn't realize they'd been holding. Peter, still frozen in place, stared at the spot where Karen had stood. He was shaking, but not from fear this time, from relief, from the overwhelming feeling that, for once, someone had stood up for him. Justin turned to him again. "Don't ever let people like that decide your worth," he said. Peter blinked back tears. "Thank you," he whispered. Justin nodded and offered him a pat on the shoulder. Across the store, the manager, Jack, finally arrived, having heard the last few exchanges. He glanced at Justin, eyes wide in disbelief, then turned to Peter. "You okay, buddy?" Peter nodded again. A little stronger this time. "I think so." And in that moment, with a single act of courage from a quiet observer, the entire mood of the market changed. People who had been silent found their voices. Strangers began nodding, offering Peter kind words as they passed. And for the first time in a long time, Peter felt something he hadn't dared believe he could feel. Belonging. From humiliation to hope, how the crowd finally stood up. The market, moments earlier, heavy with tension, now pulsed with something else entirely. Solidarity. As Karen's heels disappeared past the sliding doors, a quiet hum replaced her voice. It wasn't just silence. It was relief. People began shifting in line again, but their expressions had changed. Where there was once avoidance, now there was connection. An older man near the front of the line adjusted his glasses and stepped forward. He placed a jar of jam on the conveyor belt, then looked Peter in the eye. "You handled that with real grace, son," he said. "Takes guts, more than most people have." Peter swallowed hard, nodding. His lips twitched in the beginning of a smile. Small, unsure, but genuine. A young woman behind him chimed in, her voice bright with warmth. You're doing amazing, Peter. Honestly. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. Others in the line nodded. Even those who hadn't spoken looked at him differently, not with pity, but with respect. Jack, the manager, gently stepped in beside Peter, placing a steady hand on his back. You want to take a break? He asked softly. Peter looked at the line, now filled with supportive eyes, not judgment. No, he said, stronger now. I want to finish. Jack nodded, clearly proud. Meanwhile, Justin Bieber, still standing near the register, smiled quietly. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. His presence alone had become a catalyst, a fuse that had reignited the humanity in a room full of bystanders. As he began to step away, a woman holding her phone whispered, "That is him, right?" Another gasped, "It's Justin Bieber. No way. He just shut her down like it was nothing." Phones came out faster. A flurry of whispers became a buzz. Clips had already started uploading. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube Shorts. Within minutes, respect for Peter began trending in that local area. But in the market, none of that mattered to Peter. What mattered was how he felt. Different. Not because a celebrity defended him, but because for once, people saw beyond his condition. He wasn't the slow bagger anymore. He was Peter, a young man who stood his ground, even as everything around him crumbled. Back at checkout, a mother with a toddler in her cart leaned in with a smile. "Thank you for helping today," she said kindly. "My son thinks you're a superhero now." The child, maybe 5 or 6, waved at Peter. "You're cool," he said simply. Peter chuckled, wiping at the corner of his eye. "Thanks, buddy." Behind the counter, his movements grew more confident. He bagged quickly, but still carefully. Each customer now offered more than groceries. They gave back bits of the dignity that Karen had tried to steal. Justin, now walking toward the exit, stopped one last time. He turned and caught Peter's gaze. "Keep being you," he said. Peter nodded. His voice wasn't trembling anymore. "I will." As the automatic doors slid shut behind Justin, applause broke out. Not thunderous but sincere, like something sacred had happened, and everyone had been part of it. Outside, the sky had begun to shift, the soft golden glow of afternoon settling in. Justin moved toward his car, unhurried. He wasn't smiling for cameras or waving at fans. He didn't even glance around. But he did pause for a moment. He looked back at the market and whispered something to himself. That kid's going to be all right. Then he drove away. The internet found out, and the world reacted. The video didn't take long to explode. By the next morning, clips of the confrontation had gone viral. One particularly emotional recording, captured by a teenager halfway down the checkout line, had already hit over 2 million views. The caption read, "Justin Bieber just defended a kid with Down syndrome like an actual superhero." It wasn't just the celebrity moment that captivated people. It was the rawness, the humanity. The way Peter, a quiet, kind-hearted young man, had endured so much cruelty and still stood there trying his best. Across every platform, hashtags began to trend. Respect for Peter. Kindness matters. Be like. Just in thousands shared their thoughts. Parents of children with disabilities posted in support. Teachers, therapists, even other grocery store employees chimed in with stories of strength, of perseverance, of unseen battles fought every day behind quiet smiles. But Peter didn't know any of that yet. He was back at the market, just like every morning, putting on his uniform. Except this time, something felt different, lighter, warmer, as if yesterday's pain had somehow made space for something stronger. As he walked through the front entrance, customers recognized him immediately. A woman near the produce section smiled brightly and waved. "You're famous now, Peter," she teased gently. He laughed, a genuine, clear laugh. "I didn't do anything special," he said. "You didn't need to," she replied. "You just stayed kind. At the register, Jack handed Peter a printout of something that had been shared on the company's Facebook page. A still image from the video. Peter was in it, bagging groceries, while Justin stood beside him, protective and steady. Beneath the photo were the words, "It takes strength to stay kind in a cruel moment. Yesterday, we saw true strength." Peter stared at the image. For so long, he'd felt invisible, seen only as someone different. But this photo told a different story, a new one where he wasn't just visible, he was valued. Later, that day, media crews started calling. Journalists wanted interviews. Morning shows sent emails. There were offers of support, donations, job opportunities. But Peter didn't care about fame. He cared about what happened in that store. The moment when people stopped watching and started acting. The moment when kindness broke through. That night, he sat at the kitchen table with his mother. They'd shared a quiet dinner, and she had watched him closely all evening. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. Peter looked at her, eyes shining. "He believed in me, Mom, a stranger. He didn't know anything about me, but he still stood up." "You know why?" she asked. "Because you deserve it. And now, maybe the world finally sees that." Peter nodded slowly, and for the first time in a long time, he believed it too. Somewhere across the city, Justin scrolled quietly through his feed, watching the story grow. He didn't post about it. He didn't need to. He'd already said what mattered, but one tweet, anonymous and simple, stood out to him. "It's not about who's watching, it's about who's willing to act." Justin liked the tweet and closed the app. Meanwhile, in homes, schools, offices, people watched the clip of Peter and Justin again and again. Not for the drama, but for the reminder. That kindness still exists. That sometimes the smallest voice, the quietest heart, can carry the loudest truth. And that maybe, just maybe, the world can be better. One bag of groceries at a time. One moment of courage changed everything. The next morning, as sunlight spilled gently over the city, Peter walked to work with a different rhythm in his step. His head was higher, his shoulders no longer curled inward. He wasn't just a grocery bagger anymore. He was Peter, the young man whose quiet bravery had reminded the world what kindness really looks like. Inside the market, customers greeted him like an old friend. One by one, they offered warm smiles, fist bumps, soft-spoken encouragements. "You inspired us, Peter. You're stronger than you think. My son watched your video and said, I want to be like him." Peter smiled with every comment, not out of pride, but something deeper. A quiet, grounded joy. For the first time in his life, he felt seen for who he really was, and he owed that turning point not to a viral video, but to a single moment. A moment when someone, a stranger in a hoodie, decided that silence wasn't enough. Justin Bieber didn't change Peter's life because he was famous. He changed it because he chose to act with empathy when it mattered most. And isn't that the power we all hold? In every grocery line, every classroom, every subway car, we're offered tiny windows to choose decency, to show up, to make someone feel that they matter. Most of us wait for someone else to be that person. But what if you are that someone? What if your words, your choice to speak, or even to listen, could rewrite the ending of someone's worst day? In a world so full of noise, Peter's story reminds us of something simple yet profound. Kindness doesn't need a stage. It just needs a moment. So the next time you see someone being pushed down, looked over, or left behind, ask yourself, will I be the bystander, or the one who steps in? And if this story moved you, even just a little, do one thing right. Now, like this video, comment below, what would you have done in that moment? And share this story with someone who needs to hear it, because tomorrow we're bringing you another true story. And this time, what happens when a CEO secretly joins his company's night shift crew will absolutely blow your mind. Subscribe now. The next story, you won't believe who shows up.